Picture this, you just signed a consulting client and you're so excited, but at the same time, something just doesn't feel right. Well, you're not alone. This happens, and it's more common than many of us realize. When this takes place, we might feel like we're doing something wrong, but it's actually really normal. And it's pretty typical in the field of consulting or any type of high-ticket services. So how do you know when you're seeing red flags where you should absolutely walk or at least say something? You know that these warning signs might indicate that a project just isn't a right fit or you're going to end up really stressed out. So that's what I'm going to be going over in today's video. If we haven't met yet, my name is Laura Meyer. I'm a growth strategist to some of the country's fastest growing brands and a mentor to consultants. And throughout my career, I have encountered various situations where I had to make really tough decisions about whether or not to proceed with a client. And I have to tell you, recognizing those red flags early on can save you a lot of time, energy, and a lot of headaches and heartache. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 key red flags to watch out for before you commit to any consulting engagement. And these insights come from years of experience, and trust me, they can be the difference between a really joyful, lucrative, freedom-based consulting practice and one filled with headaches that just consumes your day. So whether you're just starting out in consulting or you're a seasoned professional, understanding these red flags is super important to just navigating your consulting journey successfully. So I want to dive in and help you discover how to spot these warning signs and then what to do when you encounter them. And I have a surprise for you at the end. It doesn't always mean fire the client. So I want to start with our first big red flag, which is a lack of implementation resources. And this is a big challenge when the client lacks the necessary staff or resources in the area where you're consulting. So imagine being brought on board to drive change or implement new strategies, but then as you start to unpack the client's needs, you realize there's a big gap. Not in their understanding or willingness, but in actual team members and resources to implement your advice as a consultant. So without the right people or resources, no matter how brilliant your strategy is, it will never work. It's like prescribing a treatment without the patient having access to the necessary medication. So that's why it's really important as you're onboarding and you're getting to know clients, not only getting a sense of what their needs are, but what resources do they have. And you need to know from the get-go if they have someone on their team who can take your plan and run with it, because effective implementation is the key to success. Otherwise, you may end up being the one doing it, which is not consulting. So when you're in those initial discussions, make sure to ask about team's capacity and resources. And it's just a simple question, but it can save you from committing to a project that can't benefit from your expertise. So understanding the client's implementation capability is just the first step in spotting potential red flags. Now I want to move on to our next point, which is equally crucial in evaluating whether or not a consulting project is the right fit. Now, this one's a biggie: immediate disagreements and contract issues. My contract's really simple. It's pretty boilerplate, so it's a real eye-opener when you encounter a client who right from the get-go challenges all your suggestions, pushes back on your contract, challenges your methodologies, kind of argues with you as you're providing advice. And we're talking about those early interactions where instead of having a collaborative approach, you're just met with continual resistance. Perhaps they're just quick to dismiss what you have to say, or maybe they're insistent on using their contract versus yours. And it completely sidelines the terms and conditions that you've put together that, from my perspective on my contract, are very simple, and also very reasonable. So this kind of pushback is more than just a hurdle. It typically reveals a deeper issue, which is a lack of trust or respect for your expertise. Consulting is built on mutual trust and respect, and it is a two-way street. So you bring your expertise to the table and they bring their openness to receive and implement the advice that you're providing. So when a client is argumentative or overly controlling from the outset, especially about contract terms, it's a pretty clear signal that they just might not value professional boundaries and the standards you've set for your work. And that's been the translation that I've experienced. So this scenario can lead to a whole bunch of problems down the line, typically strained communication, or just to potential disputes over the direction of the project. So it's really important to remember that the foundation of a successful consulting relationship is respect for each other's expertise, experience, and professional standards. And if people are fighting you on that from the beginning, it may be time to consider whether or not this is the right client for you, or if you should say something. And I'm going to tell you a story about this at the end. So now I want to go to the third red flag, and this one can be tricky to navigate, and that's dealing with contradictory stakeholders. So picture this, you're in a meeting and there's multiple people from the client's team involved, and as the conversation unfolds, you begin to notice that the stakeholders are not on the same page. Their views and approaches are actually contradicting each other, and they're all at the same level of leadership, so there's no clear leader. Or worse, they seem to be playing a game of good cop, bad cop. I've had that happen too. And this is surprisingly common, especially in family-run businesses, spouse-run businesses, or close-knit founding teams, like a husband and wife duo or founders and CEOs. And the challenge here is not about managing different opinions. It's about the confusion and mixed messages that these contradictions can create for you and for them. When the stakeholders in a project or consulting arrangement are not aligned, it can lead to total chaos and confusion. So you might find yourself caught in the middle, this has happened to me too, of internal conflicts, or trying to appease both sides, or constantly adjusting your strategy to meet these conflicting demands. And that not only hurts the effectiveness of your consulting work, but it leads to a lot of frustration in the sense of you just spinning your wheels. So how do you avoid this? When you're in discussions with potential clients, pay attention to the dynamics amongst team members or spouses or leaders. Are they presenting a united front, or are there signs of internal discord? And remember, your role as a consultant is provide solutions and strategies, not to mediate internal conflicts. And if the key players aren't aligned, it might be a sign to proceed with caution. Again, it doesn't mean walk, it just means have the conversation. And again, I'm going to tell you a few stories at the end of this video, so stay tuned on how to manage this. So the fourth red flag, and this is a crucial boundary issue, is disrespect of personal boundaries. So in the consulting world, maintaining a professional boundary is not only just important, it's essential if you want any sanity. So sometimes you might encounter clients that just overstep the boundaries, or immediately ask for your personal cell phone. That's a big no-no for me. Or sending tons of texts during off hours. So I want to emphasize how significant this red flag is. And in my experience, this is one red flag that I've never been able to successfully navigate around. Some of the others I have, and I'll share more about that at the end. But I've worked with amazing high-ticket consulting clients who have spent substantial amounts of services, multi-six figures over the years, and they never once had my personal cell phone number. And this wasn't by accident. First of all, we set really clear expectations from the beginning on how they get support and the mechanisms we have in place for that. Beyond that, respecting personal boundaries really goes both ways. So if a client is overstepping those boundaries early on, it's typically indicative of how they approach their whole business, the relationship they have with their teams, and the relationship they'll have with you moving forward. It can lead to the expectations of being available 24/7 and blurring the lines between professional and personal life, and ultimately create a very stressful and unsustainable working relationship. I don't know about you, but I cannot get a text from a client on the baseball field. I would be totally stressed out, and I probably wouldn't even remember that it had arrived. So remember, it's entirely possible to maintain successful, lucrative consulting relationships while keeping your personal boundaries intact. And the key here is to set and communicate these boundaries up front. If you don't, they will make up their own story about what's expected. And then after that, if a potential client shows signs of not respecting those boundaries, it is a significant red flag to consider carefully. And now I want to address our fifth and final red flag, which is often subtle but a telling sign, which is speaking of others poorly. This is about a client's attitude and how they communicate to others, be it their team, their competitors, or even previous consultants, agencies, freelancers, or service providers. So when a client consistently speaks negatively about other people, what it often reveals is a victim mindset with the client. And this is a mindset where they see themselves primarily as the aggrieved party in most situations. And while empathy is essential in our consulting role, solving deep-rooted problems like that often falls outside the scope of our expertise. So these clients might benefit from more of like a leadership coach or a mindset coach or even an organizational psychologist, but typically not a consultant. As consultants, our role is to advise on business strategies, processes, and improvements. And if a client is entrenched in a negative outlook, it often hinders the progress and effectiveness of our work. So it's crucial to work with clients who have a positive, proactive attitude, who are open to constructive feedback and change, because that's what you're there to provide. So if you find yourself in a situation with a potential client and they're constantly criticizing others or speaking poorly about previous working relationships, it's usually an indication that they're not ready for the kind of constructive, collaborative relationship that successful consulting engagements require. So remember, the best consulting relationships are built on trust and respect, positivity, and a forward-thinking approach. So there you have it, 5 red flags to watch out for in consulting arrangements. Now I'm going to tell you something really surprising. Just because these show up in a consulting arrangement, it does not mean that you should send a long worded email and be highly dramatic and fire the client and refund their money. What it does mean is that you need to set boundaries on how they are received. Many times clients don't even know that they're acting that way, and they don't even understand that the way in which they're acting is counterproductive to getting results. So what I like to do is kindly, clearly, and directly let them know and give them the opportunity to shift course. So I want to tell you about a recent situation where this took place. It was a client where they were referred to me by a board member of another nonprofit that I serve on, and it's a for-profit organization in the medical care arena. It is an organization that has a lot of passion, a lot of leaders at the table with varying opinions, and they wanted to bring on a consultant, me, to solve a pretty tough marketing problem they were having. This particular situation was very nuanced and had a lot of complexities due to the medical aspect to it, so there were certain regulations that we needed to be discussing, and there was no less than 80 emails going back and forth with different opinions, them wanting me to use their contract versus my contract, wanting to define the scope and redefine the scope, and everybody had a different opinion. So I was getting pretty frustrated at this point, and I ended up messaging the whole team, and I said, I think it may be a good idea for us to define how we're going to work together or find another provider. This is what I require. I require one single point of contact by which all decisions are made. I require you to use my contract. I require there to be work hours are between 9 and 4 Eastern. I do not meet or communicate before or after that time. And you know what they said? We don't want to find anybody else. We want to work with you. We will work within your parameters. And now about 5 months later, not only has it been a multi 5-figure contract for me, but it's actually a great working relationship. So sometimes in the chaos of the business world, people don't even understand how inappropriate they are acting. And just having somebody put them in line is exactly what they needed. So tell me in the comments, have you found this discussion on red flags valuable? And if you have, I have a lot more practical, actionable content to help you navigate the consulting world with confidence and success. And if you're looking to jumpstart or accelerate your journey in consulting, I've got the perfect thing for you. Check out consultingquickstart.com, and these are my top 10 strategies to get started in consulting fast. And this is designed to help you just follow my top 10 actionable steps that will help you propel your consulting career forward, and you can benefit from the awesomeness that is consulting. And remember, the journey into client acquisition and consulting can be filled with challenges, and every great consultant started somewhere. So with the right mindset and knowing what the red flags are and a willingness to learn, you can identify and respond to these red flags, and you can set yourself up for a successful and fulfilling consulting career, even if these flags do show up. So just know that your skills and insights are incredibly valuable, and the path ahead in consulting is filled with amazing opportunities to make a significant impact. I really believe in your unique capabilities to do that, and I invite you to download my top 10 steps if this is something you want to learn more about. So thanks so much for joining me in these crucial red flags in consulting engagements. Keep striving, keep growing, and let's together elevate the consulting world. Until the next video, aim high, make a difference, and I will see you soon.